One of the interesting and yet very frustrating things that I find in our secular society today is this constant lamentation of the erosion of our principles, our culture, our ethics, our morals, by the very people who advocated and pushed for the things that created this problem. I guess I would put it that way. And I don't think people really realize how badly you need God in a society for that society to stay polite, nice, safe, and so many other things. And I saw a video recently by Mike Winger that was touching on a quote from Christopher Hitchens. And Hitchens was a very renowned atheist. He died back, I think it was in 2011. So he's been gone for a while. But he was an individual who was very respected in the atheist community. And Hitchens basically, what's something that a Christian can do that an atheist can't, right? And that's an interesting question. And here's the thing. Of course, there are things that Christians can do that an atheist can do. There's good things that atheists can do. And there are bad things that Christians have done. If you've been in the church, if you've been in ministry very long, you know a Christian who's done some bad things, right? Where they fell away from God, they backslid, and they went into sin. And absolutely, that's completely possible. And, Hitchens, for all of his problems, was one of the few pro-life, or at least somewhat pro-life atheists. And that's a very, very rare creature, okay? I think it's somewhere around less than 10% of atheists are pro-life. So not very common. And yet, here is an example of something that Hitchens did where he used his influence within the atheist community to, be pro-life. And I think that was good. So here I am saying an atheist did something good, right? The problem is, though, I think a lot of times these people don't even realize it, but they're getting their morals from Christianity without even realizing it. Because, of course, you can do something that's good, but how do you even define what is good? How do you define what is bad? It's easy to say that, but at the end of the day, you have to have some sort of moral definition, right? If we're all going to try to determine how we're going to go north, we need to agree on the compass. We need to say, okay, the compass is pointing. But if we're saying, well, no, we're not going to use a compass, we throw that out the window. And that's what you're doing when you get rid of religion, when you get rid of Christianity. You're just throwing the compass out the window now. And you create this society that's completely morally lost. And that's where we're at today. We are reaping years and years of throwing out the compass. That is what we are currently experiencing. And I think a lot of these guys, they said, well, you just need to be good. You just need to be moral. But they were pulling that from their current society that was much more morally correct than we are today, thanks to Christianity back then. All right. So here's the thing. Hitchens believed normal people, you just need to have this inner voice, this conscience. You need to listen to that. You don't need the Bible. You don't need any of that. You just need your conscience. But here's the problem. Conscience can be manipulated. All right. Let's check out another one from him here.
Divine permission given to people who think they have God on their side enables actions that a morally normal unbeliever would not contemplate. The mutilation of genitalia of children. Who would do that if it wasn't decided that God wanted it? The genital mutilation community is entirely faith-based.
I don't know about that. So, here we were yesterday, actually, just yesterday. And President Donald Trump signed an executive order, all right, aimed at cutting federal support for gender transition for people under age 19. This is what he wrote. It is the policy of the United States that it will not fund, sponsor, promote, assist, or support the so-called transition of a child from one sex to another, and it will rigorously enforce all laws that prohibit or limit these destructive and life-altering procedures, the order says. Okay? So I think Hitchens' little thing there didn't age real well because he didn't live long enough to see some of the nonsense that we are seeing today. He didn't live long enough to see this stuff. And Christians aren't the ones advocating for the mutilation of children. We're not. Now, I'm not saying there's not some nut job out there, somebody masquerading as a Christian or, well, anyway. But it's not the Christians. It's not the true Christians. This whole movement, this was a Democrat, godless move of a godless and immoral segment of our society. And I know Hitchens wasn't talking about the transgender issue there, but that it's, you talk about that mutilation. I mean, there you go. And again, this wasn't the Christians. This was your liberals, your godless part of society advocating for this nonsense. Okay? And so I don't think that aged well. Again, Hitchens didn't live long enough to see it. But there's starting to be some real cracks here. Now, abortion was an interesting thing because, again, I said Hitchens was one of the very, very few pro-life advocates out there in the atheist community. He was an atheist, but he believed a baby was a baby. And it's interesting to listen to him talk about conscience and how that affects our relation to children. Let's just listen to that real quick. If I can get it up here.
The care and love and protection of children is instinct in us, in fact in many other species too that don't claim to be divinely ordered around. It's something we all share without having to have it explained to us.
Do we?
We may say that that those who don't have it, the psychopaths who don't seem to have it or who take delight in breaking this commandment or rule, we say that they're bestial, but again I refer you to the animal kingdom that doesn't allow such transgressions.
Okay, so, psychopath. All right, so an unborn baby, though. He believed that this was a child. All right? Now we see society now, and which this was something that was going on then, where a large portion of society does not have this inner voice when it comes at least to an unborn child, right? They have been so conditioned from their schooling, their education, their upbringing that, it's not really a baby. Even though there's everything there, any logical mind that was not preconditioned to buy the pro-choice, the pro-murder line, would look at an ultrasound, would look at, especially some of the modern stuff we have, would look at a baby that's in the womb and would say, yeah, that's a child. No logical person would come to a different conclusion, okay? And yet, a huge segment of our society says, kill it. Just kill it. It's okay. It's fine. You want to kill it? Kill it. All right? This doesn't hold up. What Hitchens is saying, well, just follow your voice, just follow your more, no. If you don't have God as a society, if you don't have some sort of a compass, you will quickly devolve as a society, and we have unfortunately seen that, and we're dealing with that. Again, it's not the true Christians of today that are advocating for the killing of the children, the murder of the innocent. I know there are nut jobs, there are people out there who claim to be Christian. It's not the Christians. It's Democrats, it's atheists. Again, Hitchens was an absolute rarity. I believe it's less than 10% of atheists are pro-life. That should have told Hitchens something, right? This is one of the few things he got right. But Christians are, true Christians, we are the ones who value life. We're the ones who look at our fellow man and say, you are made in the image of God. We're the ones doing that. We're the ones doing that. It's not the atheists, all right? The atheists look at their fellow man and say, you're just a clump of cells. You're just, you're just another animal amongst the animal kingdom. And you get what you get when you take that approach. And this is something, this notion that you're just going to grow up with your conscience that's going to naturally lead you. I think there's some truth to that if you truly followed it from your childhood up. The problem is that when you live in a society run by wicked people, when you go to a school run by wicked teachers, pumping lies and all kinds of stuff to you, it's very easy to stop listening to that conscience. It's very easy to get to a point where your conscience is very misguided. And that's why we need church. That's why we need God in the schools. That's why we need children raised with Christian principles so that they know how to spot this stuff and say, that's right, that's wrong. You take Christianity out of that, you have no more right and wrong. You have your opinion, my opinion, but you don't have right and wrong. All right? We need religion to bring us back to, we need religion brought back to the forefront so that people have a moral compass. We need people back in church. We need families studying God's Word. You got to have a family, though, to study God's Word as a family, right? So we need the family unit again so that we can keep these things in front of our people and have a moral society. Otherwise, you get what we have today, where our society is just headed downhill. Immorality is just rampantly rising. And I found this next clip interesting because it touched on something that actually happened in my world. Let me just show it to you real quick here.
It's been C.S. Lewis decided to call it conscience and to attribute it to the divine, but he didn't improve on what Adam Smith said in the Theory of Moral Sentiments or what Socrates said when standing trial for his own life. It's been sometimes colloquially defined as, why do people behave well when nobody's looking? I don't believe there's anyone in this hall who doesn't know what I mean by that. Why, when it won't do you any good, will you decide, I could have kept that wallet I found on the back of the cab seat, but I'm not going to. I'm going to turn it in. I'm going to find its real possessor. There are people to whom those thoughts do not occur, who are deaf to that idea, who only think of themselves, who wouldn't worry about the internal daemon or censor or companion. And there are, of course, people who only get pleasure from being unpleasant to other people and inflicting cruelty on them. The first group we call the sociopathic, and the second group we call the psychopathic. They occur in nature.
Okay, so this is interesting to me because something like this, something very similar to this happened on a mission field where somebody I knew went to a missionary I know, and they said, hey, I guess my understanding was it was just kind of a nonchalant telling of a story of something that happened to them that day, where they're like, yeah, I found a wallet. Found a wallet on the street. Somebody must have dropped it. I looked in it, had the guy's information, driver's license, credentials, whatever, and money. I took the money out and I threw the wallet in the trash can. Wait a second. No, that is not what you were to do. Like, did you make an effort to get it back to the person? Why did you take this is not what you should do. And yet this is what you get if a person has not been raised right, if they have not been trained in proper morals, if they have not been trained. It's very easy to say, well, why not? I'm just going to take it and, it's fine for me, too bad for him, Finders, keepers, losers, weep. No, that is not Christianity. That is not Christianity. Christianity looks on and says, what can I do for my fellow man? Not how can I take advantage of my fellow man to just better myself. Christianity puts others ahead of myself. Okay? And so without that, unfortunately, without those principles being taught and trained to people, it's very easy for them to, again, I'm not saying people don't have a conscience. I'm just saying it's very easy for them to push that out, that conscience out. If Christianity, if the church is not there to keep these things in front of people, and you wind up with a society you're not going to like. You're not going to want to live in that society. And we're going to see more of that here in a little bit. As I was looking into Christopher Hitchens, another name came up. A guy who's still in the air, Bill Maher. Turns out he was somewhat friends with him, and Bill Maher is somebody who frequently mocks religion. But something happened recently in the news where a health executive CEO was gunned down. He was killed. And this is something that came up on one of Maher's recent programmings. And I want you to hear here what happens on this program. Listen to this, okay?
But one hopeful thing did happen when we were on our break. A health insurance executive got shot in the back on the street in broad daylight. And the kids couldn't love the guy who did it anymore if he was the leader of a terrorist organization.
Now, I don't know if you caught that, but there was a moment in there when he says the thing, you can almost hear somebody like start to clap, and then like, maybe like, oh, wait, maybe we shouldn't be clapping for this, because it's a very sad story. Somebody died. There's a family grieving the loss of a loved one. And I just found it interesting that somebody started to clap there. But the story keeps going. All right, let's keep listening in here. We're going to jump in another part. All right.
Look, we've all been there. Ever get a prescription filled and they say, that'll be $1 million, please. And you say, is there an alternative? And they say, oh yeah, there's one that's basically the same for $10. I didn't mention it because it didn't seem like something people would be interested in. Or how about when healthcare providers put on the bill something they know is already covered just to see if you'll pay it anyway, because they have the ethics of a Nigerian prince emailing you for a loan.
Catch that? Catch that? Okay. So now all of a sudden, here you got Bill Maher, big atheist, right? And we've already heard from Christopher Hitchens, right? And wait a second now. Now we're lamenting the ethics of this, this big thing. We're fed up with what's going on here. And I find it really interesting. So the progressives, we're fed up with the immorality that we've created, basically. And I know they'd say, well, it's not our fault. Okay, we're going to get into that in a little bit here. But Maurer and many people in America, they're fed up with the ethics of these companies taking advantage of people, or at least that's the perception, okay? And like, where's their conscience, right? Where's the conscience of these companies? And as somebody who's dealt with the medical industry way more than I want to, there's a lot of stuff going on there that I believe is very, very shady. And where's their conscience? Why aren't they just following this little voice that atheists are telling us, just do what's right? Why aren't they doing that? What's going on here? What's happening? And he goes on to lament. So he goes on to lament what's going on here. What's going on with the young people, though, of our country. So let's take a listen to that.
But here's what's so interesting about this. The reaction from different generations. Older people think it's bad to shoot a guy in the street.
Why?
But 41% of 18 to 29-year-olds say it's completely or somewhat acceptable, where only 9% find it so extra.
Okay, so I'll tell you what, I don't think it's any secret what has happened. Why were the older generation not okay with it, but the younger generation? Because you guys got what you wanted. You got what you fought for. You've got what you've pushed for. You wanted God out of schools, you got that. And you know what? This is the society you get. All right? You wanted to say, well, there's no moral being that we're ever going to have to answer to. We can go live like animals. We can do what we want, and it's fine. Our fellow man's just a clump of cells. Okay, you got that. That's what you wanted, and you've got it. And now all of a sudden people are like, oh, well, we don't like this. Well, guess what? It's not going to be something that's just going to probably turn around overnight unless we see real revival in our land. Okay? This is something that you got to teach it to people. You got to, you got to train children in this. From the time they're young, you got to raise them up right. And what they're seeing is all of a sudden they're going, oh my goodness, this new generation coming on is completely without morals. They don't realize this is wrong. What's going on? I'll tell you what's going on. You taught them it wasn't. You taught them that there was no God that they were going to answer to. That they were just another animal. All right? And I mean, hey, if you're just another animal, then why not? This is the logical conclusion to what these people have been pushing for. It's the logical conclusion. All right? I'm going to pull up a little conversation that I had with ChatGPT. ChatGPT. All right? And talking to ChatGPT, wow, I'm having trouble with this word. Anyway, you see it there on the screen. All right? The decline of Christianity in America. Looking at that, I don't even think it's debatable. I don't think anybody's going to argue about it. Maybe you will. You help yourself. But over time, Christianity has been in decline in America, right? Churches are shutting down, blah, 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 blah. We could go on and on, all right? And I'm going to go kind of slow here in case you want to pause it and read any of this. But what we're seeing here, accelerated decline, right? 78%. We're talking about people who with Christian affiliation, 78% 2007, 63% in 2021. Who knows what it is today, all right? Just keeps going down, current trends. Nuns, so not Catholic, but people that are religiously unaffiliated, 30%, almost a third of the U.S. population. Hey, you atheists, you got what you wanted. You're getting what you wanted. This is what you've asked for. All right? It's just been a huge decline in America. And so then I asked ChatGPT, I said, what increases in immorality have we seen during this same time period? So this would be a lot of research and analysis to try to do, just using ChatGPT here to try to pull this together here. And this is interesting because I want you to notice that the concept of immorality is highly subjective. Depends on one's culture, religious, personal values, right? And this is what, atheists would say now. It's like, well, it's just subjective. I mean, if you think it's right for you. If you think it's wrong for you. Well, is it good for the greater good? Okay. Well, let's just look at some of the things that have happened. Sexual norms and behavior, rise of casual sex. Is that good for a society? Is that good? No, absolutely not. Hookup culture? No, absolutely not. Pornography, the degrading of women? That's supposed to be the decline of traditional marriage? Okay? You want solid homes, you want solid families? Well, we don't have that anymore. LGBTQ plus, and how do they even know where to stop that one now? Visible. Okay? Immorality, completely on the rise. Substance use, increased drug use, binge drinking, violence and sex in media, desensitization. These are things that have gone up, right? Immorality that has just taken off with the decline in Christianity. Decline in family structures. All right? Out of wedlock births, often viewed by some as a breakdown of traditional family values. You think? Youth rebellion, is that such a great thing? Rise in individualism, materialism and consumerism, focus on self-interest. This is the stuff we were just talking about. All right? You want to get rid of Christianity, this is what you get. This is the results you're getting. This is the payout for what you've invested in. Decreased altruism. Crime, violence, gun violence, dramatic increases in gun-related deaths, which we were just talking about one of those. Mass shootings, criminal activity, rise of online fraud, hacking, and other digital offenses. All right? Again, this is, as Christianity goes down, this stuff takes off. Okay? Counter-arguments. While these trends may be seen as signs of immorality by some, I would be one of those some. Others view them as evidence of greater freedom and equality, modernization, and technological advancement. All right? The interpretation of these trends depends heavily on one's worldview. For some, they represent a moral decline. For others, they reflect a society evolving toward greater inclusivity and freedom. Yeah, and if that is your position, if that's what you think, of these things, if you think we're better off as a society, you are part of the problem. You are part of the problem. And you need to go take a long, hard look in the mirror. Because this is not a good thing. Where we are going as a society, this is absolutely not a good thing. And we're seeing it. People like Bill Maher, atheists, are going, what's going on? We don't like what we're seeing. Yeah, well, I'll tell you what's going on. You are getting what you wanted. You're getting what you asked for. Now, I want to wrap this up with this. The silver lining in all this is, as we listen to Hitchinson talk, he talked about these categories of people, right? There's those that they follow the voice and they're, great people. They just do good. They don't need God, but they just do good. And then there's these others, and he just kind of clumps them into these groups. What Christianity does is it looks at people, even the worst people, and it says, yes, you're a bad person, but you can change. you can change. You can be a different person. You don't have to keep being a bad person. I'm going to switch over here to the Bible, 1 Corinthians chapter 6, starting at verse 9. Or do you not know that wrongdoers will not inherit the kingdom of God? All right, this is getting back to moral, back to our responsibility before God. And this is what Christians believe. If you're doing these things, you're not going to go to heaven. You're going to go to hell. All right? I'm sorry if you don't like that, but that's morally right, morally wrong. You need to hear this. All right? Wrongdoers will not inherit the kingdom of God. Do not be deceived, neither the sexually immoral, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor men who have sex with men. You know, a lot of times people want to just talk about the gays and all that, but it's also the adulterers, right? Look at this list. Nor thieves, nor the greedy, nor drunkards, nor slanderers, nor swindlers will inherit the kingdom of God. You can choose not to believe this, but it's still fact. It's still truth. And you're still going to answer it. All right, but this is the beauty of Christianity right here. And that is what some of you were. All right, some of us were that. But you were washed, you were sanctified, you were justified in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ and by the Spirit of our God. Christianity does not leave people in their sin, in their immorality. It says you can, through the power of God, be changed. You can become a new creature. All right? Now, I've said this before. If the atheists are right, if they're completely right, if Christianity were just a lie, it's not, but if it were, all right, and if atheism were the grand truth, then I will say this again. The lie of Christianity has done far more for the good of our civilization than the truth of atheism could have ever hoped to do. Now, I'm glad to tell you it's actually the absolute opposite. Christianity is the truth. Atheism is the lie. And if we want our country to be great again, then we need to make our country godly again. And at the end of the day, you might say, well, what can I do? Well, there's a number of things you can do, but probably one of the most important is to look in the mirror and make sure you are living a godly life. If you're living in wickedness, if you've bought into these lies that you've been told, it's not too late. You can change. You can give your heart and your life over to God and let Him change you completely. And at the grassroots, you can be part of the solution instead of being part of the problem. And I would just encourage you today that if you look at your life and you say, well, I've bought the lie. I've been living this way. It's not too late. Give your heart, give your life completely over to God, and He will change you. Because while atheism is a myth, and while atheism is a lie that's built on all kinds of falsehoods, Christianity is a reality. And God will and can and will change you if you will surrender your life to Him. So if you haven't done that, do it today. Thanks a lot.